Hey guys, what's going on? So in this video today, I'm going to be talking about my experience in quick service food and beverage on the Disney College program. If you watched my last video, which was the DCP roundup video, I talked about how I was going to be talking about work in a separate video. If you didn't watch that video that I'm talking about, or have no idea what I'm saying, I did make a video, which was my last one that I made. It was the DCP roundup video where I talked about my experience on the college program. I talked about a bunch of different things. I talked about TransStar, I talked a little bit about work, I talked about the apartments, all that. So if you're interested in seeing that, I'll leave the link in the description or somewhere on the screen. But this video in particular is going to be just about work. So in this video, I'm just going to be talking about quick service food and beverage. I am going to talk about main entrance in another video. I figured I would do it separately though, because you know, let's say that you're just looking for a video strictly about quick service or strictly about main entrance. I don't want to make a video that's, you know, fills the two so that you'd have to worry about fast forwarding or whatever. So, and quick service for me, it was a lot because it was the job that I had the longest during my college program, and it was also probably the busier location that I had, and there was a lot going on and it was a larger location. So yeah, anyway, I'm gonna be talking about my experience there. So my location for quick service food and beverage was at Hollywood Studios at Sunset Ranch Market and Dockside Complex, which was basically about 7 different places in Hollywood Studios. It was pretty much in one general area though. It was from the boat-shaped restaurant to the left when you first entered the park by 50's Primetime, that boat-shaped little place, I worked there, all the way up until right on the corner, right before you turn to go to Rock and Roller Coaster by Tower of Terror. Basically all the places that serve food except for Sweet Spells on the left, that was considered merchandise, I worked at. So in case you're wondering what stores that included, let's see, if we were going up from the boat. Let's start. Min and Bill's is the boat-shaped restaurant, then Starring Rolls Cafe, which is the bakery, Anaheim Produce, Rosie's All-American Cafe, Catalina Eddie's, Fairfax Fair, and Hollywood Scoops. So those were all the places where I worked. In case you're curious as to what my costume looked like, I'll post a picture right now. Yeah, it was very, very cute, right? That straw hat though. I didn't mind my costume for the most part. Towards the end of my time at Hollywood, I really hated that thing. It was really annoying and I hated wearing it, but whatever, I got used to it. It was just a lot to wear, and when it was hot out, it was just really gross, and when it was humid outside, it just felt like there was a lot going on because you had the pants, which it looks like a dress, but they're actually pants. You had the shirt, and then you had the apron on top of it, and I usually had shorts under my pants because my pants were really big. And then like, I don't know, it felt more comfortable to wear shorts underneath it. And then I also had the straw hat. I hated that hat. It was so annoying. I hated that straw hat. So you sign up for the college program, you get your role, you get to Florida, you do all your housing stuff that you have to do, and then you go to Traditions, which is basically, I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about Traditions, so I'll just say that it's basically like a Disney, it's basically a class where you learn all about Disney, how the company started up, how Walt Disney World came about, creating the magic, all that sort of stuff. And it's a very long class that you take at Disney University. And then once you're done with that, based on your role, you go ahead and do all the things that you need to do. So for me, for quick service, the first thing I did was Welcome to Guest Operations, which is a very boring class that you are going to have to take. Then I think it was the next day, I had Welcome to Food and Beverage, which was basically what it sounds like. You learn about what working in food and beverage is like at Walt Disney World, and again, it's another boring class, but you gotta do it. You do a couple videos and stuff on the computer and all that, and that is also where you get your non-slip shoes. At least that's where I got mine, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then after that, I had park orientation, which is where, I don't remember what it was called. I want to say it was On With the Show. I can't remember what the actual thing was called, but basically it was Hollywood Studios park orientation where we got to walk around Hollywood Studios for a few hours, and that was probably the best class that I ever had because it made me so excited to work at Hollywood. I thought I was working in the coolest park ever, and I was so excited. I was so happy. Anyway, after that, that was when we actually started training for quick service at my location. Before I get into training about that, I'll talk about basically physical appearance as far as quick service goes. Like I said, I showed you the costume and what it looked like. In the costume, in the picture, at least I think, I'm gonna pick a picture where my hair's pulled back You have to have your hair pulled back when you're working in quick service because, of course, safety reasons. They don't want your hair falling into the food. That's gross. Some locations may require you to wear a hairnet. My location did not. We had to wear the hat though. You have to wear a hat. You have to have your hair pulled back. You have to get a pair of special non-slip shoes. Thankfully, if you work in quick service food and beverage, you get supplied the shoes, which is nice. They give you shoes and they're free. You don't have to pay for them. The only way you would have to pay for them is if you lost them and needed a new pair. If you need a new pair, just because yours are getting a little bit messed up, you're actually allowed to go ahead and switch them out at Magic Kingdom Costuming, and they'll give you a new pair of shoes, which was nice because I did that at least once. And also, ladies or men, fingernails. No nail polish, no clear nail polish if you're working in quick service. I don't know what the other roles are like, but for us, nothing. No nail polish, no gel nails, no fake nails, no long nails. Nothing. It's got to be all natural. So yeah, that's basically as far as physical appearance goes with quick service. So now I'm just going to kind of jump right into the training process of how everything started with my experience. So on our first day of training, like hands-on training, the first thing that we did was that we just kind of got a feel for what backstage was like. We got, a little tour just so we knew where to go when we needed to get there in our area. That way we knew where to go, where to clock in, all that stuff. And then it was finally time to get hands-on training. Because we had 7 different locations, we had 1 day of training at each location, except for Rosie's All-American Cafe. Since that was the biggest and busiest place, we had 2 days of training there. So I'm gonna go through each day and what it was like and the roles that we had to, or basically the assignments that we were given and how we trained and all that stuff. So my first day of training, I trained at Rosie's All-American Cafe, and I trained in the kitchen. So the first thing we did was we learned Burger Station, or burger setups, I should say. It was called Burger Station, I think. I don't remember what it was called, but we called it Burger Setups. Basically the way that worked was that we had 3 different kinds of burgers at Rosie's. We had the veggie burger, the onion cheeseburger, and then just the cheeseburger. Okay, obviously before you start making a hamburger, other than the meat, you need the bun, and basically it was bun setups. If it was a onion cheeseburger that we were making, we had to make onion setups, and we would make, basically we would toast the bread and then we would put whatever it required. So if you were making onion setups, you would put cheese. We had the special sauce that went on the cheeseburger for onions, so we put that, and then we took the fried onions and put it there. And when the people that were on assembly, which I'll get to in a second, when the people on assembly needed setups, they would say what kind they needed, and then we would make them for them and hand them over to assembly. And if it was cheese setups, we would just toast the bread and put cheese on it, and then when someone needed a cheese setup, they would shout it out and you would bring them the cheese setup. Then the next thing we trained in was fryers, which it's basically self-explanatory. We learned how the fryers worked, how to fry French fries, onions, and chicken nuggets. Basically it. Then the next thing we learned was anchor. The guest would go up to the register, place an order. Once the order is placed and the person on register hits total, an order on a ticket gets sent to the back of the kitchen, and it gets sent to the person on anchor. That person basically takes a tray, takes the ticket with all the stuff on it, and based on what the person ordered, so let's say that the person or the guest ordered a cheeseburger meal, a kid's turkey sandwich meal, a large drink, and 2 chocolate cupcakes. I don't know. And so basically you would take the plates that are needed for the kid's turkey sandwich or for the cheeseburger meal, and you would set that up. And then there was also like this other little setup for assembly. Basically assembly and anchor are a team. And now I'm gonna move over to what assembly does. And assembly, which is another thing, or the next thing that we trained in, was basically you look at the ticket and see what you need. So you would take the buns, or sometimes the person on anchor would do it too. It was kind of like a team effort. You basically work together to get the food that you can get onto the plate. That way you can get it onto the hotline, and then the person that's filling in the front, which I will get to, will take care of the rest of the order. But you basically take care of the food that is hot that needs to get on that plate and out to the guest. So the assembly person would take the burger and they would take the meat and then put like the lettuce and tomato, whether it needs it or not, and then get the french fries on the plate, and then the person on anchor would probably take care of the kids' turkey sandwich, all that stuff. And then once that's said and done, you take the plate and put it out on the hotline, and then everyone that's in the front of the house will take care of the rest. So that's basically what assembly was and what anchor was. They basically just got the food together on the plate and then sends it out. There were 2 other roles that you could pick up, or 2 other assignments that you could pick up, but we never actually trained in them, which was weird. But we never got trained in them, which was prep kitchen and grill. Grill is basically easy enough to understand. It's the grill station for the meat, for the burgers. You take the meat, put some salt and pepper on it, put it on the grill, put some more salt and pepper and wait for it to do its thing, and then you take the meat and give it to the people on assembly when they need it. And then prep station, or prep kitchen, was probably one of my least favorite roles, just because it was the most boring role. You basically are setting up lettuce and tomatoes. It's lettuce and tomato setups is pretty much what it is. Take a piece of lettuce, take a piece of tomato, line them up on like this wax paper inside of a tin, and then you make a couple layers of it and then put it in the fridge, and then whenever they need lettuce and tomatoes, people go from the kitchen and get them. That's basically what it is. And one time I did it for 4 hours. It was so boring, but it's what you signed up for, so that's that. And then also at the end of every single day, every single training, we learned how to close the location. So we learned how to close the kitchen, and closing basically for every location is making sure your area is clean enough, because there's another night crew that would come in and clean more. So basically we just have to make sure that like the majority of it is clean, make sure everything is stocked, make sure everything that needs to get, wrapped is wrapped and kept clean, and that was basically it. So the next day we trained at Rosie's front, and Rosie's front consisted of a few different roles: register, filling, and drink station. Register is pretty much self-explanatory. You take the guest's order, you learn how to deal with traveler's checks and money and stuff like that. You learn about that before you actually start training on register, but it's definitely, for me, was one of the easiest roles, and whenever I got register, I was pretty happy, because the hardest part is really just dealing with the guests and hoping that they're not hangry, angry, and hungry. Also, another thing that you have to do with that register is learning about the dining plan. That was my phone, getting an email. Anyway, like I said, the dining plan, you will learn about it before you start training, but once you actually start going on register, you learn what's a part of the dining plan and what's not, what it includes, what it entails, whatever. That dining plan will get drilled into your brain. Of course, you have the magic your way, pay on the magic bands. This isn't a magic band, this is a scrunchie, but you learn how that works, because people or guests can link their credit cards to their magic bands and use that to pay, and you learn about all of that. But the next thing that we learned how to do was filling, which is what I talked about before. So remember I talked about how the person on assembly line back in the kitchen takes the food, puts it on the hotline, and then the person that's filling takes care of the rest of the order. So let's go back to that order, and if I remember, it was a cheeseburger meal, a kid's turkey sandwich meal. You also had, I believe it was a large drink and 2 chocolate cupcakes. So basically once you grab the food, you'll see that there's going to be like a tray, or at least a place with all the food, the hot food. You grab it, and then you're going to look at the ticket. There's a paper ticket with the order, like I said. Make sure that everything that needed to be taken care of by the kitchen is on the tray. So that would be the cheeseburger meal with the french fries, and the kids' turkey sandwich meal with whatever sides that they ordered. And then the large drink and the 2 chocolate cupcakes, they're not on the tray. That's because you have to take care of that. So there's gonna be like a setup where there's a bunch of drinks that the person on drinks, which I'll get to next, takes care of. So you look for that large Coke or whatever it is, and you take the large Coke, put it on the tray, and then you grab the 2 chocolate cupcakes from the fridge, and then you go ahead and present it to the guest. And it's that simple. The person that's filling basically fills up the rest of the order. It's basically what it is. And it was one of my favorite positions too, because it was very easy, and you get to interact with the guests also, and it was really nice. The person on drinks at Rosie's, There was usually either 1 or 2 people on drinks depending on how busy it was. And basically, like I said, once the person on register hits total and that order goes back to the kitchen, any drinks that pop up on that order, you're gonna get specifically the person on drinks. They're gonna have their own screen where all the orders are gonna come up, and they're gonna have the drinks that are on that order so that they can make them, whether it's a Sprite or large Coke or an iced tea, a coffee, whatever it is, an alcoholic drink. You take care of that. And yeah, you basically do that. And that's my favorite role. Honestly, that was my favorite assignment to pick up. That's basically everything that there was at Rosie's, and then that night we learned how to close the front, which is basically the same thing. Make sure everything is clean, stocked, wrapped up, all of that. So as far as register, filling, drinks, and kitchen go, it's basically the same thing at every single location, except it's a different location with different food. But basically it's the same exact thing. Filling at Rosie's is the same thing as filling at Eddie's or Fairfax or Scoops, or the same thing for drinks at Fairfax is the same thing as it is at Eddie's and Rosie's. But yeah, that's basically, it's the same thing. So that being said, I'm not gonna get too into how register, filling, and all that is in all the different locations. Just know it's basically the same exact way as it was at Rosie's, for us anyway. I don't know how register, filling, or drinks is at all the other locations, but at Sunset it was pretty much the same thing except different food. That being said, I'm going to move on to the next place, and day 3 of training was at Eddie's, Catalina Eddie's, which was one of my favorite places to work. So there were 2 positions in the kitchen that you could pick up at Eddie's. That was salads and pizzas. Salads is pretty self-explanatory. There are these side salads that come with the pizzas or the Subway sandwiches that we sold, and you basically were in charge of making that. And we also had a chicken Caesar salad, and we had to make those too whenever the order would come up. And those were a little bit bigger and larger, but basically you were in charge of making side salads and chicken Caesar or large Caesar salads. So yeah, that was that. Then pizza station was the person who took care of making the pizzas, putting the pizzas in the oven, putting the Subway sandwiches in the oven, and also sometimes putting the veggie patties, because Rosie's and Eddie's were kind of connected. So if the people at Rosie's were running out of veggie burgers, you would go ahead and make some veggie burgers in the oven at Eddie's. And then if you were to pick up a position in the front, the other positions you could pick up at Eddie's were register and filling and drinks, which, like I said, are basically the same thing that you would see at Rosie's except different food. Alright, so day 4 we trained at Fairfax Fair, and Fairfax is where we sold the turkey legs, we sold like baked beans and pulled pork sandwiches, hot dogs, all these gourmet hot dogs, like a mac and cheese hot dog, a pulled pork hot dog. I can't even talk. But we sold a bunch of different food. Those roles were pretty much the same. You could pick up drinks, register, filler, and kitchen sides 1 and 2. Kitchen side 1 basically took care of the chicken that we had, the pulled pork sandwiches, what did we have? We had ribs and turkey legs. Took care of that. And then the people on kitchen 2 would take care of the hot dogs, the kids' turkey sandwiches, and I think that was it. Oh, and the Fairfax salads. I hated picking up Fairfax kitchen, but if I was on side 1 it was okay because it was a little bit easier. You don't have to really worry about making the food. If you're on side 2, you had to worry about making the hot dogs and making sure that they were the right temperature. And yeah. Then the 5th place, or the 5th day, we trained at Min & Bill's, which again, you could pick up register, filler, and kitchen. The kitchen for Min & Bill's, there was also 2 sides. If you were on side 1, you were dealing with the sausage sandwiches and the hot dogs. They did change the menu right before I left, so it was a little bit different, but I never got put in the kitchen, ever. I think I picked it up once, and it was completely slow that day, so I barely made anything. And then, anyway, if you picked up kitchen side 2, you were taking care of the mac and cheese dishes. And the turkey legs. And also another position that you can pick up that was different was boat bussing. Boat bussing was the worst, or one of the worst, or most stressful positions you could ever pick up, because boat busser, you are bussing tables, which is fine. Basically this restaurant was weird because Min & Bill's, which is the boat-shaped restaurant over by 50's Primetime, it's completely separated from Sunset, which is really weird. So I don't know why we're a part of Min & Bill's or why that's a part of Sunset's location. I still don't understand until this day. So Min & Bill's is basically its own little area. It has its own seating, so there's like a bunch of tables, and it's got their own trash cans and stuff. So if you're boat bussing, you're taking care of not only bussing tables, but you're sweeping the area, that's another position that you pick up as a busser in general. But also, you are filling up the condiment bar, making sure it's stocked. You are taking out the trash, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but you have this like giant trash bin where you're taking all the trash, and you're selling turkey legs at Min and Bill's, so sometimes those trash cans can get really heavy, or those trash bags can get really heavy, and then you have to go to another location to go dump your trash, and then come back and then hope that, you know, the place hasn't gotten too dirty since you've left. And then once that's done, you also have to take care of dishes. So you have to go to the kitchen and make sure that all the trays get clean so that they don't run out of trays at Min and Bill's. And then you have to also make sure that the dishes that the kitchen are using are clean. You're taking care of that. It's definitely a 2-person job. And for some reason, they only made it a 1-person job. Don't understand that till this day. It doesn't seem like a lot when you say it out loud, but when you're working and it's really busy, that's definitely not a 1-person job. You need 2 people, at least 1 person doing the dishes, because yeah, it's pretty bad. So the next day of training was at Anaheim Produce, which is where we sold pretzels, churros, lemonade slushies, and just like bottled drinks and some snacks that you can purchase with like your meal plan as a snack credit. And it's good. I didn't mind working at Produce. Closing Produce was a bitch, but like working there wasn't that bad. You would basically pick up one position, which was register, and as a register position, you were also filling. When it was really, really busy, sometimes they would have a filler and 2 people on register and 1 person filling. But really, for the most part, it was just 2 people on register, and you were taking care of all the stuff, it really wasn't that bad, because like the most that you would ever do was just like make a bunch of lemonade slushies and just grab pretzels and grab churros and all that. It really wasn't that bad. And then you're also taking care of filling up the napkins and filling up the forks and the spoons. The next day we trained at my favorite place that I got to work at, which was Scoops. Hollywood Scoops, which is where we sold ice cream. But before we started doing that, we started training on condiment bar, bussing, and trash. Condiment bar is basically where you make sure the condiment bar is stocked with ketchup, mustard, relish, barbecue sauce, honey mustard, napkins, forks, spoons, knives, all that stuff. You're taking care of 2 giant condiment bars that we have, or that we had. I don't know what's changed since I left, but I'm pretty sure a lot of it's the same. But we had 2 condiment bars that we took care of, and it was a job that definitely kept you busy, because you would think that like stocking up on ketchup and mustard doesn't take that much, but like you had to make sure that it looked really full, and you would refill the napkins, and then you would turn around for a second to go refill the ketchup, and then when you turned back around, all the napkins were gone because someone decided that they needed 50 napkins for their 1 cheeseburger that they ordered. It's ridiculous how much stuff people will take, and then how much that they don't use. Something that irked me till no end. I'll jump right into the next role, which was bussing, which is basically where you're cleaning off tables, sweeping up the floor, and making sure no garbage is on the floor, making sure the area looks neat and tidy, putting the chairs back where they need to go, because we had chairs that moved around. We had like benches. Something that bothered me till no end was when I was bussing and a family would get up, they would take their garbage, but they would leave the barbecue sauces and the ketchups that they didn't use all over the table and like stack it up really high, thinking that we would take it and put it back on the condiment bar. Like, we don't do that. Once you touch it, we can't take it back. Like, that's gross. Like, if you left there, we don't know what you did with it, so we have to throw it all out. And like, you just see all this ketchup and stuff that goes to waste, and you're like, really? Like, you really think you needed 7 ranches for your like whatever it was that you were eating? Like, it's ridiculous. It bothered me, but whatever. Anyway, that was a thing that would happen. So bussing was basically just cleaning tables and sweeping the floor, putting chairs back together, easy enough. Then the next thing that we learned was trash, which was basically what it sounds like. We had a bunch of different trash cans in our area, and we had this giant like bin where we would put the trash bags in. We would take care of the trash and take it out when it needed to get taken out, and then take it to the giant trash compactor that we had backstage. And that was basically it. So I'm actually sitting here editing the video right now, and I realized that while I was talking about trash and bussing and condiment bar that I totally forgot to mention what it was like to work at Scoops, which was the ice cream place and my favorite place to work. So I'll just mention it really quickly. The positions you could pick up were register, filler, Sunday scooper, and scooper 1 or 2. Depending on how busy it was. We either had 1 register open or 2 registers open, and if we had 2 registers open, we had 2 fillers and 2 scoopers. Register and filler was the same as anywhere else. Filling was a little bit different where we had to take the receipt from the guest, so the register person would give the receipt to the guest and say hand it over to the person who was filling. So then the filler would take the receipt and say, okay, this person ordered 2 brownie sundaes and 1 chocolate cone and 1 vanilla cone. So then they would wait for the person that's scooping the ice cream to get them the ice cream, and then they would take it and give it to the guest. If you were scooper 1 or 2, you were just taking care of the ice cream and the cups and the cones. You weren't doing sundaes or anything. You were doing strictly cups and cones of ice cream. That was it. And then Sunday scooper there was only 1 Sunday scooper, which is weird. I think there always needed to be 2. But Sunday scooper just took care of brownie sundaes, hot fudge sundaes, and yeah, that was pretty much it. So I liked Scoops. It was my favorite place to work because I don't know, I had experience in a frozen yogurt place, so working with ice cream was like fun for me. And yeah, scooper was always a fun position for me to pick up, and I always loved register at Scoops also. So yeah, that was basically it. Now I'm gonna get back to talking about I don't know what I'm talking about next in the video, but you'll hear me talking about it in a second. Alright, bye! Alright, then the last day of training was at the bakery, which was Starring Rolls Cafe, and I honestly can tell you I don't remember much from training that day. It was the last day of training. I remember it was Valentine's Day. I remember that really weirdly enough, but it was an early day, and the day ended early also because the bakery closed at like 4, so we got out of work at like 5 or 5:30. And we started work at like 8 that day or something like that. But yeah, it was one of the easier days, I think. There were like 4 or 5 people that I trained with that day, and basically we had register, there was a filling position, a drink position, and then there was bakery busser. Bakery busser is basically the same thing as boat busser, except you don't have to worry about dishes. So that was a little bit easier. Filling was pretty much the same as everything else. Register was the same, and drinks were the same, except for drinks you had to learn how to make different kinds of cappuccinos and espressos and stuff. So that was basically it for my training. We trained for about 8 days, which was expanded basically within the time of 2 weeks because we had our days off also. But yeah, it was an interesting training experience overall. I had the same trainer every single day. Some people had the opportunity to train with different people every day. For me, I had the same training group, the same trainer. Every once in a while we would get like a new trainee get put with us, but like for the most part we had the same exact group every single day. And how did I feel overall? Honestly, I did not feel very confident. I talked about this a little bit in my last video, but I did not feel confident in my training at the end of it. I felt like, I mean, there was, like I said, we trained in 7 different places, and once the 2 weeks were up, we had to take an assessment the day after we finished training. And there was a lot of information that we had to retain from the 7 different places. We had to, retain information about closing and hold times for food and temperatures and all this stuff. And I felt like once my training was over that like I didn't know anything. And normally in that situation you would try and talk to your trainer about it, and I did. And I felt like even when I talked to my trainer, some questions weren't answered the way I would have liked for them have them to been answered, if that makes any sense. I never hated my trainer, but I would have liked a different trainer just because I think that, everyone has a different method of teaching. Everyone takes ways of teaching differently, and everyone learns differently from different methods, but some better than others. And I honestly, personally think I would have been better off with someone else, or at least had some variety. It would have been nice to have had maybe that trainer for one day and then another trainer for another day. I would have liked to have some type of variety, but I had the same teacher every day, and I wasn't very fond of the way my training had gone overall. And I didn't want to every single day I would go into work thinking maybe today it'll be better. Maybe today it'll be better. Oh, I don't feel very confident today, but maybe tomorrow will be better. And then before I knew it, it was time for my assessment, and I was like, I'm gonna fail. Basically, your assessment, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, you have to take an assessment at the end of your training. At least at my location we did. We had to take a written test, and it was a bunch of questions about closing and what's on what burger and all this sort of stuff. What's on the menu at this place, and what's the hold temperature for this food, and all these sorts of questions. And I felt like I was gonna fail. Like, I went into it really nervous and came out of it just really flustered, and I was like, I feel like I just failed my assessment. And lo and behold, I did fail my assessment. And that was horrible. It was the worst feeling I've ever felt in my entire life because, I mean, like I said in the last video, as far as training goes, I like to think that I'm attentive and I like to ask lots of questions. And I do, like, I ask a lot of questions, but I felt like when I asked questions, they weren't answered to the extent I would have liked for them to have been. And my trainer was kind of just a little bit more quiet, and like I said, I wasn't comfortable during training, and part of me wondered if it was me, because I was the only one who failed. And I failed by 3 points. It's not like I got like a 2 out of 100, guys. I was supposed to get at least an 80, and I got a 77. So that was just kind of a big whomp, because I was like, really? I failed by like 3 points? Are you joking? And like, the way certain questions were worded also confused me. And like, also I understood things, but I didn't know how to write it on paper, because not every single question was multiple choice. A lot of it was like fill in the blank, and I would write it in one way, meaning for it to sound one way, and then I guess it came out differently across paper, and I got the questions wrong, and it was I didn't know what was gonna happen. I was like, now what? And basically what the facilitator told me was that, okay, so you failed your assessment, it's not a big deal. Basically what you're gonna do, I'm gonna give you back the paper, you're gonna go over everything that you got wrong, make sure you understand why you got it wrong. Then instead of having your shift today, you're gonna train with another, he didn't say with another trainer, he just said you're gonna train again today with a trainer. And he told me to go find a leader and tell a leader that I failed and then I needed to train again. And that was just embarrassing, having to go up to a leader and being like, hi, I just failed my assessment. I need to train again today. That was so embarrassing. And then having to go up to the trainer and being like, hi, I'm joining your training group today because I failed my assessment. And I'm like the only one who failed it. I was mortified. And I remember the leader was like, would you like the same trainer? And I was like, no, I don't want the same trainer. No offense. I would like a different one. So she put me with someone else, and that day of training, I feel like I learned more in one day than I had in 2 weeks. I had a different trainer and I felt so much better. The way that this new trainer brought things was just different. Everything was different, and I felt just so much more confident, and I was like, okay, I can do this. And I feel bad because I don't want people to think that I'm talking smack, because I'm not. I just think that, like I said, everyone has a different method of teaching and everyone takes to different methods. And my first trainer that I had just wasn't the right trainer for me, I think. Like I said, they were a nice person. I have nothing against them. I just personally think I would have done better with a different trainer. That's just that. I took the assessment the next day after my full day of training, and I passed it. And I was able to take off that little red ribbon that said earning my ears, and I was officially a Walt Disney World cast member. I have to say that really dropped my confidence, and I think that was very clear, and sometimes it came across that way, and I think that some of my fellow coworkers were able to see that, and it sucks that all of that happened, honestly. At the end of the day, I can't change anything. I can't change the way everything happened, and I moved on. Sunset is in the past. It is what it is. Can't change it. Oh well. So like I said, that the fact that I failed my assessment really put a damper in my confidence, and after I put a damper in my confidence, it definitely didn't make me feel comfortable with my job sometimes. And I think that showed, and I touched on this lightly in my last video, how I felt I didn't feel confident in my abilities, like I said, and that it showed, and that I think some of my fellow cast members were able to see that, and that kind of reflected how they felt about me. Now, let me start off by saying that I by no means hated anyone that I worked with. I absolutely did not. Did I think everyone hated me? Absolutely not. There were some people that I hung out with at work who I really, really liked. most of the people that I worked with were really cool, and I could talk to them, and you know, I hung out with some of the fellow CPs outside of work, and they were really cool. But there were a very small amount of people who I could tell that did not like to be around me, or just people in general. I don't understand how you're gonna work with the public and not like people. I mean, I'm not very fond of people and their attitudes, but like, I like talking to guests, and I like, you know, learning about their stories and stuff. And there were just some people that I worked with, but you're gonna get this anywhere, I guess, that like you could tell that they just don't want to be there. You're gonna get this anywhere, and it's the very hard truth that no one ever wants to hear, especially if you think you're working for Disney. You think that everyone's gonna be super magical and happy, and unfortunately that's not gonna always be the case. You're gonna work with people who don't want to be at Disney, who don't like Disney, who don't know anything about Disney, but they're still working at Disney, and it's very confusing. I just said Disney like 5 times in like 5 seconds. I do this thing where I can talk to guests all the time, all day. I can talk to strangers as long as I know that they're a guest, but when it comes to like my fellow coworkers or cast members, I get really nervous. And I do this to myself at every single job that I've ever had in my entire life, where I meet someone and I actually really like them and I want to get along with them, and I get so nervous because I think they're really cool and I don't want to say something stupid, so I just kind of stay quiet in hopes that nothing stupid will come out of my mouth, which by doing that, it kind of keeps people away from me, and I can't help it. It's just something I've always done. If I say something stupid to a guest, the odds that I'm going to see them again are very slim. But if I say something stupid to a coworker, I'm going to see them again tomorrow. And it's something I did at Sunset, and I think that people thought that because I was quiet that maybe I was weird, or that they maybe thought that I didn't like them or something like that. But the odds were that I probably liked you. If anyone, I highly doubt that someone from Sunset is watching this video. But if you're watching this and you thought that I hated you because I was so quiet, that was probably the complete opposite, and it was probably the fact that I actually thought you were cool. What this is supposed to mean is that when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, I feel like there were some coworkers that I got along with who I was able to hang out with outside of work and be myself, and that was really great. And then there were some people that I worked with that I could tell that they felt uncomfortable around me, and they made it very clear that they either didn't want me there or didn't want to be near me. Especially, I'm not going to get into names or anything, but one specific coordinator, I can tell this one coordinator did not like me at all. I would step into the room and their face would change, and it was awful. Like, they made it very clear that they did not like me. But like I said, there were some people who I worked with who were really great, and I enjoyed being around them, especially the CPs. The CPs were really cool, and I loved being around them. But there were some people who I could tell did not want me there. Like, was it a lot of people? No, but there was very few people. So my overall experience at Hollywood Studios in quick service, what did I think? I loved my location. My location, by far, it was probably my second favorite location, because I technically had 2 roles, but and when I worked in main entrance, I got deployed to Magic Kingdom sometimes for parade control. That was my favorite location. But if you wanted to exclude that, I would definitely say that Hollywood Studios was my favorite location, because it was just a lot of fun. And I was right by Tower of Terror, and I was right by Fantasmic, and I can sometimes hear it at night when I was busting or taking out the trash. I thought that was really cool. As an overall experience, I don't take anything back. I like a lot of the people that I met and that are still in my life, which is nice. And it definitely taught me that the people that you work with are gonna make or shape the experience that you have at work. And I definitely learned that from both Hollywood Studios and at ESPN when I had my second role, which I guess I can segue into now, which is main entrance operations, which is going to be the next video that I'm going to be talking about. So I'm just going to go ahead and end it here by saying my experience at Hollywood Studios and quick service food and beverage, I will say that I liked it. Did I love it? No, but I liked it. I hope you guys found that video a little bit insightful about what it's like to work in food and beverage at Disney, or at least what it's, because most quick service places, some of them are going to be a little bit different, but for the most part, a lot of the things are similar. I know that, like, for me, because I worked a lot in the kitchen, but you know, Sam, who was my roommate who worked at the Harbor House in Magic Kingdom, she never worked in the kitchen at all. They had their own personal chefs that like made the food there, but for us, we made most of the food. But like for her, she just had to take care of like filler and drinks and busing and taking out trash and all that sort of stuff. So it's different for everyone, but yeah, that's kind of what it's like to work in quick service, at least a little bit. It gives you a little bit of insight and maybe will help you decide whether or not you want to do it or put interest in it when you apply for your college program. So I hope that that video helped at least a little bit. Stay tuned for my next video because I'm going to be talking about my main entrance role that I had at ESPN, and maybe I'll talk a little bit about parade audience control in the Magic Kingdom, which is where I got deployed to when I worked at ESPN. Like I said earlier, if you hadn't checked out my DCP Roundup video, I'll leave the link for that in the description, where I talked about everything about my college program, TransStar, apartments, all of that. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all really soon in the next video. Bye!